Welcome to Mr. Disturbing. Tonight, we're plunging into the dark heart of the Appalachians with some truly unsettling true horror stories. That'll keep you up all night. If you're brave enough, smash that like button and subscribe so you don't miss the next descent into fear. My name is Grant Mercer. I am 45 years old. I live in Johnson City, Tennessee, not far from the Cherokee National Forest. For the past 20 years, I've worked as a survey cartographer for the state, mapping old lands, forgotten parcels, and uncharted spaces. The Appalachian Mountains have always been my territory. I thought I knew their patterns, their quirks, their moods. But last fall, I found a place that was never meant to be mapped. The assignment came from a quiet request through a historic land trust. They'd recently acquired a 1,200-acre tract deep in a remote section of the mountains bordering North Carolina. The land had never been properly surveyed. No deeds since the late 1800s. No modern records. The only access was by an old logging railbed, long abandoned, half swallowed by forest. I was curious. I took the job. The drive out took most of a day. Narrow roads, faded signs, no cell signal by the time I reached the tree line. I parked where the rails vanished under brush and hiked the rest, pack loaded with maps, notebooks, laser rangefinders, old survey chains. The first stretch was uneventful. Cool air, gold and red leaves, deep silence. The forest here was ancient. By mid-afternoon, I reached the heart of the tract, a wide basin hollow ringed by ridges. There was something odd about the place. The air felt heavy. The forest grew in perfect lines, not naturally scattered but aligned, trunks straight, evenly spaced, too precise. I made camp at the edge of an overgrown glade and began my work. But even as I measured distances, angles, elevations, things began to shift. Landmarks wouldn't hold. Trees seemed to lean in when I wasn't looking. The magnetic compass spun wildly, useless. My watch froze at 2:17 p.m. and never restarted. I kept working. Just past sunset, I noticed strange structures in the underbrush. Old stone stacks, chest high, arranged in spiral patterns. Moss-covered yet sharp-edged beneath. They were not natural. The deeper I walked, the more I found. And then came the voices. At first faint, distant hums beneath the wind, then clearer, as if spoken through the trunks themselves. Grant! The sound seemed to circle me, always behind. I stopped. I called out. No response but the growing sense of unseen watchers. I returned to camp, shaken. That night sleep would not come. The forest was too silent. No crickets, no owls, just an unbroken, heavy stillness. At some point, I don't know when, a deep thudding vibration began under the earth, as though some vast mechanism were turning slowly in the dark below. My tent walls pulsed with each tremor. I lay frozen, heart pounding, unable to move. Hours passed in that half-paralyzed state. Just before dawn, the tremors ceased. The forest remained silent, unnatural. When light came, I broke camp and tried to hike out, but the path was gone. The railbed no longer led back, just endless trees, repeating groves that seemed to loop endlessly. My survey marks were erased. The landscape had shifted. I walked for hours. No bearings held. The sun remained low, barely moving. I began to hear voices again, closer now, layered and dry, speaking in no language I knew. And then I saw them. Figures between the trunks, pale, thin, tall beyond normal height, their faces obscured. They watched in stillness, heads tilting as I moved. No footsteps, no sound, just presence. I tried to force a path, hacking through underbrush. The spirals grew everywhere, carved into bark, arranged in stone, appearing in leaf patterns. Time dissolved. Hunger faded. Only the growing pull remained, a sense of being drawn somewhere deeper, toward the center, toward something waiting beneath this old, untouched land. When exhaustion claimed me, I collapsed beneath a warped oak, eyes wide to the dark above. The last thing I heard before sleep took me was the deep, slow breathing of the earth itself, rising from below. I don't know how long I slept beneath that warped oak. When I awoke, the light had changed. Dim, diffuse, as though the sun was struggling through thick cloud, though the sky overhead was bare. The forest smelled stronger now, damp earth laced with a metallic edge that burned faintly in my nose. The spirals were everywhere, etched into the bark of surrounding trees, scratched faintly into stones, even formed in the way fallen leaves curled unnaturally on the ground. My pack was untouched beside me, yet my map case lay open, its contents rearranged. My notebook now bore faint spiral markings along its margins. Drawn with a hand I didn't remember moving. My watch remained frozen at 2:17. There was no signal on any device. The compass needle spun without pause. The sense of being watched was stronger. The pale figures had returned, closer this time, no longer flitting between trees, but standing still. At intervals, their elongated forms blending with the trunks. They did not approach. They simply observed. Heads tilted, limbs too long, joints wrong. I forced myself to move, to break the spell. I walked. The forest shifted around me, trails looping. No matter the bearing I took, I would always return to the same landmarks. The stone stacks, the warped oak, a shallow creek bed running with dark water that hadn't been there before. Hunger gnawed faintly at me, but a deeper part of me no longer cared. Something had taken hold. I was being drawn somewhere, and then, without transition, I was there. Standing at the edge of a vast sunken clearing, circular, its rim lined with those same ancient stone stacks. In the center, a massive spiral had been carved into the earth itself, deep grooves spiraling inward toward a broad, dark chasm yawning in the center. The air above the pit shimmered faintly. The breathing grew louder here, slow, rhythmic, deep enough to vibrate the ground beneath my boots. The pale figures stood at intervals along the rim, heads bowed, arms slack. And across the far side of the spiral, another stood, taller, broader, its form less defined, as though half-formed from the air itself. It raised its head. Where a face should have been, there was only blank skin, save for a deep spiral hollow set where the brow would rest. The moment our gazes locked, something entered my mind. Cold, vast, ancient, beyond words. A voice followed. Not heard, but felt, pressed into thought. You map what should remain unmarked. You seek what was sealed. Now you will serve. My legs buckled. I fell to my knees at the spiral's edge, vision swimming. Images flooded my mind. Ancient rites beneath these mountains. Stones marked to bind what lay below. Generations tasked to maintain those bindings. And now, with the land forgotten, the bindings were weakening. The watchers remained, their purpose to guard, to warn, to pull new vessels when the old ones failed. I was chosen, marked, claimed. My arms burned. Beneath my sleeves, new spirals had appeared, pale, raised, warm to the touch. The voice pressed deeper. You will carry us beyond these woods. The path will open. The meaning was clear. Part of whatever force bound to this place had attached to me. Through me, it could extend beyond this land. I don't know how long I knelt there. The world dissolved into breath and pulse and spiral thought. When I finally moved, it was not by choice, but by some deeper compulsion. I stumbled back into the forest. The watchers let me pass. I wandered through the warped woods until I found the old rail bed again, though it should have been miles away. The forest parted before me unnaturally. The sun had not moved. My frozen watch still read 2:17. Yet as I reached my truck, The world outside seemed to shift back. The air lighter, sound returning. My dash clock now read 4:44, though I'd lost all sense of time. The drive home was a blur. The spiral marks burned faintly beneath my sleeves the whole way. At first, I thought escape was possible. Back in my house, the signs were subtle. The occasional whisper, shadows moving at the edges of sight. But then the spirals began to appear, in condensation on windows, etched faintly into my walls, drawn in dust on surfaces I had just cleaned. I scrubbed them away. They returned. My electronics glitched. My dreams filled with that vast breathing and endless spiral paths. I wake often at 2:17 a.m., no matter when I sleep. Each time the breathing returns, closer. And I know the pull is not finished. The spiral path is not closed. The thing beneath those woods is still watching me, and soon it will call me back. It's strange how the mind tries to rationalize the impossible. In the first few weeks after I came back, I clung to the idea that it was exhaustion, hallucination. Maybe I'd gotten turned around, spent too long without food, without sleep. The forest can do that to you. Or so I told myself. But deep down, I knew better. You don't forget the sound of the earth breathing beneath your feet. You don't forget those pale figures, still as statues, watching from between the trees. And you damn sure don't forget the feel of something ancient pressing into your mind, leaving marks that don't fade. At first, the signs were subtle. I'd catch myself tracing spirals into the corners of my notebooks without realizing. Lines of text would bend around them. My computer would lock at exactly 2:17, screen flickering, cursor spinning in a loop. Then came the whispers, soft like wind through bare branches, just under hearing. I'd turn off everything, lights, fans, but the sound remained. And then the spirals began to show up where they shouldn't, on the bathroom mirror, on the frosted glass of my truck window in the morning. Once, burned faintly into the wooden floor near my bed, the edges still warm when I touched them. I tried leaving. Packed my gear, drove 6 hours west. New motel, new town. The first night there, I woke bolt upright, not from a nightmare, but to the sound of breathing, slow, deep. Felt through the bed frame, up through the floor. I checked the clock, 2:17. I didn't sleep after that. I kept moving, town to town. But it followed. No matter how far I drove, the same things returned. The spirals, the whispers, the pull. And worse. Sometimes I'd catch shapes in the corner of my eye. Tall, thin silhouettes where no one should be. Reflections in dark windows, leaning shapes that melted away when I looked straight on. One night in a roadside diner outside Asheville, a stranger sat across from me, uninvited, silent. Old man, pale skin, eyes clouded. He said one thing before he stood and left, voice like gravel. It always brings us back. No explanation, no name, just those words. The worst part is, I believe him, because the pull has only gotten stronger. The marks on my arms, they've spread. Faint spirals now rise along my ribs, my spine. They burn cold some nights. The breathing comes louder, the dreams sharper, and each time I wake, I'm closer to the door. Last week, I found myself sitting in the truck at dawn, engine running, pack on the seat beside me. No memory of getting there. A map of the old track lay unfolded on the dash, the spiral clearing circled in red, a mark I don't remember making. I know what this is. I know where it leads. And the truth is, part of me doesn't even want to fight it anymore. Whatever I disturbed in those woods, whatever ancient thing watches beneath that land, it's in me now. It's patient. It's pulling me home. Maybe tonight. Maybe next week. But I know how this ends. The path is open. The watchers are waiting. And when the time comes, when my truck rolls down that old rail bed again, I won't be the one driving. My name is Ethan Ward. I'm 41 years old. I live in Charlottesville, Virginia. I work as a remote sensing engineer for a private geospatial technology company. My job mostly involves flying drones over remote areas, analyzing terrain, vegetation health, land changes, things used for environmental studies or land development. I've always liked the work. I enjoy the quiet, the solitude. I've spent countless hours in deep forests, swamps, deserts. I'm not the type to scare easily. But last September, I was sent on an assignment that changed me, maybe even marked me. The site was a 900-acre tract of forest near the West Virginia border. Old-growth land. It hadn't been logged or touched since the 1930s. A conservation group wanted updated terrain models and vegetation analysis. No roads went into the center. Too dense for ground crews. Perfect job for drones. I drove out early, alone, in my truck loaded with survey gear, comms equipment, and my best drone. A rugged, long-range model with LiDAR and multispectral sensors. The forest was beautiful, untouched, towering hardwoods, thick undergrowth. The air felt cooler than expected. Still, I set up my station at the edge of an old game trail. Skies were clear. Everything normal. I launched the drone mid-morning. For the first 20 minutes, all telemetry was perfect. Then, something odd. On the live video feed, a perfect circle appeared in the canopy, maybe 60 feet across. The trees inside it looked oddly uniform, almost pruned. My mapping software flagged it immediately. I adjusted the drone to hover for a closer pass. That's when signal interference spiked. The feed began to glitch, strange bands of static. Seconds later, I lost all contact. Full signal drop. Drone unresponsive. Gone. I cursed under my breath. Expensive gear. I packed light and hiked toward the last known coordinates, about a mile in. The deeper I went, the stranger things felt. The air grew thick with an earthy, metallic smell, sharp and unnatural. The trees themselves began to change, growing unnaturally straight, evenly spaced, trunks smooth. It felt engineered somehow. I marked my path with chalk on trees and a habit for backtracking. But when I looked back after 20 minutes, the marks were gone, no trace. My skin prickled. Then came the first voice, soft, close, a faint whisper. Ethan. My blood ran cold. I spun, flashlight ready. No one. Nothing but that unnatural silence. I forced myself on, adrenaline pushing me. The game trail disappeared completely. The forest seemed to close behind me. The light dimmed, though it was midday. My watch had stopped. I checked, 3:33, dead. No reason. My phone battery, too. I kept moving until the forest abruptly opened, a circular clearing maybe 100 feet across. The ground was bare, except for a stone-edged sinkhole at the center. Around it, strange spiral carvings etched into the soil. At the far edge, my missing drone sat intact, its casing covered in condensation, icy cold to the touch, though the air was mild. As I inspected it, I noticed something worse. A long, thin handprint pressed deep into the bark of a nearby tree. The fingers were too long, no nails, almost skeletal. My breath caught. The forest around me seemed to exhale, a deep, slow breathing sound that vibrated through the ground. I backed away slowly, heart hammering. That's when I saw it. An ancient stone wall half collapsed, spirals cut deep into its surface. The air grew colder. My flashlight flickered. I turned and made for the direction I thought I'd come. But the trail was gone. No path. No chalk marks. Only that strange forest pressing in again. When I finally reached my truck, hours later, stumbling, drenched in sweat, I checked the dash clock. It, too, read 3:33, frozen. The drive home felt surreal. My mind numb, my hands trembling. Back in my apartment, I downloaded the drone data. At first, everything was corrupted, static, garbled frames. But one still image remained, a shot of the sinkhole clearing. In the frame stood a tall, faceless figure, limbs impossibly long, pale, featureless. I tried deleting it. The image kept reappearing, over and over. No matter what I did, something had followed me home. I could feel it. The first night back home, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that clearing again. The perfect circle, the spirals, the black sinkhole yawning in the earth, and that figure, frozen in the drone frame, burned into my mind. No face, just emptiness. When I did drift off, the nightmares came. In them, I was back in that clearing, unable to move, the air thick with that same metallic, earthy smell. Something vast stirred beneath the ground. The slow, deep breathing I had heard before, shaking the earth, rattling my bones. I'd wake gasping, soaked in sweat, the clock beside my bed frozen again at 3:33. No matter when I awoke, the time always read the same. The next morning, hoping to shake the unease, I tried focusing on the drone data. I scrubbed every second of footage. The signal interference began the moment the drone crossed into that circle. The image of the figure appeared in several frames. First as a distant shadow between trees, then clear in the final still. Every attempt to delete or overwrite the file failed. The image persisted, somehow written into the device itself. I stopped trying. My work laptop began acting strange, freezing at random, windows opening on their own. Spiral patterns appearing faintly in background noise on the monitor. I ran diagnostics, no malware, no hardware faults. But the signs grew worse. The next evening, I noticed spiral patterns appearing in the condensation on my bathroom mirror, on the inside of my window pane, even drawn faintly in dust on my kitchen table. Though I hadn't touched it, I began hearing whispers again, at first faint beneath the hum of my apartment, then clearer. Ethan, always from just out of sight. My phone battery, fully charged, would drain to 0 by 3:33 each night. Lights flickered. Small objects moved. My apartment no longer felt safe. In desperation, I packed a bag and drove hours to stay with an old college friend in Richmond. For a while, things calmed, but even there, the signs followed. Spirals appeared on fogged glass. My phone camera glitched at exactly 3:33 a.m., capturing brief, blurred shapes, tall, thin, faceless. My nightmares worsened. I stopped sleeping. I stopped eating. My friend noticed. He suggested I see someone. But what could I say? That something from an untouched forest was following me? That a thing with no face was creeping through my life? I couldn't explain it. I stopped going into work. I couldn't bear to see the drone files again. But somehow, the image of that figure still appeared on my devices, on my phone background, in random folders, even burned faintly into my home television when powered off. Then came the final sign. 3 weeks after the trip, a small package arrived at my apartment in Charlottesville. No return address, postmarked from some rural route in West Virginia. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a single object, a rough stone disc, palm-sized, cool to the touch, carved deep with a spiral symbol identical to those in the clearing. Beneath it, a single scrap of paper. Plain, unmarked, except for the numbers. 3:33. My breath caught. I dropped the stone and fled the apartment. I haven't returned since. I've moved cities now. New job, new apartment. I tell myself I'm safe. But I know the truth. The signs still appear. I wake at 3:33 no matter where I sleep. Spirals form in condensation, in shadows, in the grain of my furniture. Sometimes, in moments of exhaustion, I hear it again. That deep breathing, slow and massive from beneath the ground. And I know Whatever stirs beneath that untouched forest, I've brought part of it back with me, and it's still watching. It has been 6 months since that assignment on the borderland forest. I live now in Asheville, 100 miles from the site, in a small apartment near the city center. I've changed phones, laptops, numbers. I left my old job. I haven't touched a drone since. But it doesn't matter. The pull never left. It's subtle during the day, a low undercurrent of unease, the occasional whisper barely audible beneath the hum of city life. But at night, it returns full force. Without fail, no matter what clock I set, no matter if I unplug everything, I wake at exactly 3:33 a.m. The air is always cold, the apartment is always silent, and the spirals are always there. At first, they were faint, in steam on glass, in the curl of a spilled drink. Now they appear carved, etched into the wood of my floor, scrawled in patterns I don't remember making. They spread, multiplying in corners of the room, behind picture frames, even beneath my skin. The marks on my forearms have deepened, raised now, pale, faintly luminescent when the lights are off. I tried seeing doctors. They ran tests, found nothing, no infection, no explanation. I tried moving again. Each time the same pattern. The signs follow. The time repeats. The image returns. No matter what device I use, new phone, new laptop, at some point, the same frame appears. The clearing, the sinkhole, and the faceless figure standing just beyond it. Its elongated head tilted slightly, as if aware, as if waiting. The deep breathing returns often now, not imagined, not dreamed. I hear it through the floor at night, slow, immense, ancient. It vibrates through my bones, syncs with the pulsing in my arms. Some nights, I catch shadows moving at the edges of my vision, tall, thin forms. They never cross fully into sight, but they are there, watching. A week ago, something new happened. I received an email from an untraceable address. Blank subject, no message, just an attached image. It was a photo of my current apartment building, taken at night. In the corner of the frame, a faint figure stood across the street. Tall, faceless, head tilted. After that, the dreams intensified. I'm not sure they are dreams anymore. I find myself walking through the clearing again. The air thick, the ground cold, spirals glowing faintly beneath my feet. The breathing shakes the earth, and I hear the voice now, not words exactly, but meaning pressed into my mind. You open the path. You carry us. I don't know what I've carried. I only know it's with me, always. I've begun to fear sleep, fear being alone. The marks continue to spread. The spirals appear now in public places, drawn in condensation on cafe windows as I pass, etched faintly into stone walls along sidewalks. Strangers glance at me strangely. Some step away without knowing why. I don't think I have long. The pull is growing stronger. Some nights, I find myself standing by the door at 3:33, keys in hand, coat on, as if preparing to drive. I don't remember deciding to move, but something calls me back. Back to that forest, back to the sinkhole, back to whatever lies beneath. The stone disc still sits wrapped in cloth, locked away, but sometimes I hear it faintly humming, vibrating in time with that vast breathing. I don't know what will happen when I return, but I know I will. It's only a matter of time. The path is open. The watchers are waiting, and I was the one who brought them through.